So Gladys is here. Hi, Gladys. Gladys's mission is to improve lives through technology. Her curiosity, passion, and entrepreneurial spirit continues to fill her life journey with delightful experiences, including growing up in Cameroon, West Africa, obtaining a BS in computer science from Brigham Young University, and an MBA from Seattle University. A fulfilling work experience to date ranging from writing security software at Microsoft, driving global campaigns on our corporate marketing group, to explore her passion for writing children's books. Gladys also has experience working in telecommunications and the payment industries. As a product manager at Microsoft by day, inspired by Microsoft to enable people on the planet to do more and the scale and impact our solutions deliver to customers and partners. She's a mother, an author, a singer, an entrepreneur, and community volunteer in between. In the journey, she's most grateful for all the people she's had the great fortune to work with, learn from, and from whom she's inspired to make our world a better place. Her favorite sources of inspiration are nature and the arts. So Gladys, I turn it over to you.
Thank you so much, Elena, for that great intro. I hope I can keep up that beat, with our talk today. So if you don't mind, I can take over and share my screen. That would be great, and we can get started. Okay. Let me try that again. Okay. Can everybody see my screen?
It's now coming through, Gladys.
Loading now.
Yep, we see it. It's there.
Okay, thank you so much, Elena. I'm really humbled by that intro. I'm not going to take a lot of time to talk about me again, but I'm really grateful for everyone who took the time to be here and for this great community that I'm really excited to be part of, as Elena said, to contribute and also to have fun and to learn from each other. So as everybody knows, most of us in products had a windy journey to where they arrive. So if you pay attention to the red square, which I am today, and I'm going to spend the time elaborating what a platform PM is, given that you've heard about the journey up to that point. So I'm a product manager for Microsoft Graph, which is the platform that hosts Microsoft 365 data. So our mission, primary goal, is to make it easier for our customers to access, the data and intelligence securely for their customers and to build applications on top of that. That to say, just to be able to support that mission to transform lives through technology. So I thought since this group is going to be a little bit of a techie, I'm starting in dark mode, but eventually we're going to go to light mode because that's my favorite. So our agenda looks a little bit like this today. I'm going to just spend like a little short time thinking about, what's the difference between a platform and a product, really quick definition, and then followed by like the tales of two platforms that you will really relate to, especially if you use a mobile phone, which I'm sure 99.999% of us do have one of those. And we will also look at some industry trends when it comes to product versus platform. And then before I dive in back into Microsoft, what we do in terms of the platform we built with Graph, as well as share some really, top 5 high-level key learnings that we've seen as it differs from a regular product manager, given that I have done that as well in the other domains, whether it be in e-commerce or in payments. In payments, I've actually been in platforms for a while now. And then some gotchas, so basically things that product managers building platforms have to think about as they build a platform as well. And then we're going to close with some Q&A. But for groundkeeping, if you have any questions, you feel free to interrupt, or Elena can interrupt me and then ask the questions on your behalf, use the chat, and let's keep this engaging and interactive. Okay, so as you can already tell, I love colors, and I thought as a Friday, we should brighten up, the end of our week. So how I would like to define product, it's usually something that you can package and sell most often to like your end users. And I'm sure, some of us have worked on some similar products. But in contrast, when I think of a platform, it's actually like the common infrastructure that other products can be built on. like notice the difference in definition, right? So one of them, I said something you can package and sell, but one as a platform where you can actually build things on. But like, who are the builders? Understanding that platforms comes with many different stakeholders. You have developers internally, externally, both contributing to the platform and consuming your platforms. You have partners that, you know, innovate alongside with you and create new business models on your platform. And you also have, you know, you see ways that your platforms can be extended and given a new life through what we usually call an ecosystem. It's where all the participant gets to play, you know, it's a give and take. You invest into the platform and then you reap the benefit in the long term as your ecosystem grows. But now that we've looked at that definition, I want you to pay attention to something that, you know, like I said earlier, we will all relate to. As we see platforms being the foundation upon which products are built, I want to take you way back when. Who knows what this is? You can use the chat, and I'm sure it's like, now that we're in light mode and some of these devices do not exist anymore, it started like this. Once upon a time, this used to be called the king of the smartphone. And of course, the logo on top of it gives it away. But what was fascinating, right, is at some point, up to 2011, like just 10 years ago, BlackBerry held 50% of market share in the US when it came to smartphones. I'm actually very curious to know if any of you, I wish I had like a polling system to know if any of you ever held one of these in your hands or in your pocket. But you can also use the chat. I will check it out later. So that indicates that either, you know, at least one of us on this call at least had one of these or couldn't live without their Blackberries. Then came along, wait for it, two seemingly harmless characters. We wouldn't want to eat an apple, or we wouldn't want to play with a bot looking like toy, right? Maybe BlackBerry wasn't like the favorite things that they needed to do. So we will think that, you know, then there was a war between the different mobile, you know, operating systems, BlackBerry versus iOS versus Android. Was that really what was going on? Let me give you some context here. Up to that time in 2011, BlackBerry had attracted 8,000 app developers, and Apple had built a very interesting model around their platform that attracted 500 app developers. You can just see how alive one ecosystem was versus the other. Not to mention that, you know, Apple also had, you know, the brilliant idea to skim through, you know, the iPhone, the iPad, the iMac, the iWatch, everything kind of just worked for that platform. So the real war was the war of ecosystems. What the third-party ecosystem had given advantage to Apple was by no much something that BlackBerry could compete with. It didn't matter how many security features or device form factors that BlackBerry could come up with. They just couldn't hold ground to the iOS platform. So, you know, that's enough about that short tell. But let's just look at the industry all up today, right? Fast forward to a time, and this is by no means a comprehensive picture of the platforms that exist out there. One thing that I kind of caught my eye with this, especially given that the title is the API economy, is that platform-based digital ecosystems are increasingly becoming the dominant model in our industry. I bet many of you today on this call have actually integrated with at least one or two of the logos that you see here. I mean, in my specific example, I have integrated with Twilio as part of working in the telecommunications business to expand messaging capabilities. I worked at Stripe previously, so the payments infrastructure for the internet, I definitely have experience with that. And then as a marketer, we use Segment. Segment is a platform that allows you to manage and target customers. And then for running my own, you know, platform, e-commerce platform in the past, I also use Shippo, which is an e-commerce platform to streamline shipping. So this is just to tell you that almost every facet of our life today can be automated by the use of a platform. No more needs to reinvent the wheel. If you look by vertical or horizontal line, likely there is a platform out there that is small enough, that has a niche that can fit, most of the common needs that we have. But doesn't mean it's all taken, right? There is still room for more, and that's kind of also where Graph comes into place. So, how do we go from the industry and now down to Microsoft? One of the things that I really love, and it was a statement from Satya, our CEO, many years ago in 2014. And he said, Microsoft is a productivity and platform company. One thing that I want you to take here is the terms combined together. But Microsoft has always been a platform company. Even back into the Windows 1.0 in 1985, we had an operating system that attracted partners, developers that built apps to really extend the life of the ecosystem. On the productivity side, that's where we're going to spend some time today, which is, you're probably familiar with Microsoft Productivity Suite. I am sure each of us have used. If you've used Excel, Word, PowerPoint, or any of those in your lifetime, you belong here, and we're grateful for that. Thank you. So, borrowing his words, we're going to deep dive into what productivity means. As I was trying to really capture the essence of this for you, I thought, what could I do, if I did alphabetically sort and kind of had the list of different apps at Microsoft that constitute our productivity cloud. So, and I played the game and I said, how many letters are we missing? We have more than 26, but we're missing 8 letters. So, maybe we will come up with new products in our suite of productivity cloud that enables people on the planet to do more. Just think for a second, what you can do with a spreadsheet or a document or task or sending an email and collaborating or using Teams to be able to really share and collaborate with your team. So this is a little bit what enterprise and team collaboration look like at scale. It is very critical to every business, especially during the new normal, which includes remote and hybrid work. These applications help everybody achieve more. But what's even more important is, imagine a world where you as a developer or you as a product manager wanted to build an engaging, interactive experience that combine one or two of our products. You will have to actually find each of these, find their endpoints, find their APIs, be able to integrate together and stitch it to be able to deliver your experience. My friends, trust me, that world existed up to 2016 when we launched Microsoft Graph APIs. So this is what we did. We abstracted not just the sheer volume of apps we had, but the complexity involved into authenticating with every single app, accessing the data that you needed in order to build your applications. So in terms, we actually have a vibrant ecosystem of over 500,000 applications that have been built on Graph to date to be able to interact with the product suites that you see on your left. This is the power of a platform and ecosystem at play. And these apps do not even equate the number of add-ins that you may be familiar with that exist within each of these products. Our team, specifically Microsoft Graph, is focused on really reducing the friction and helping third-party developers and partners build applications that meet their needs, and even better, helping independent service and software vendors actually create business models on top of this. In return, they deliver optimal value and rich user-centric experiences for their customers. So this is a top priority for all of us here at Graph, to really make sure that you have the tools, a scalable platform to help you meet those needs. But one even more important thing about Graph is it is not just a cover over the product. If you look carefully at what actually happens into Graph, it's all the interactions, the files, the events that your organization has with the content. And that's kind of why we call it a data platform. Just think about trying to figure out, when is my next meeting, or how often do I meet with my manager or with my friend Glenn, who is my coworker here on the call. You can actually use Graph to get those insights. Even more important, in the times that we are in, you can actually use insights from Graph or Microsoft Viva, which is also built on Graph, to get a pulse on how your organization is doing, how remote work is enabled and working for them. So it's not just a cover around products that you need to access Excel, but it's more like, what task do I want to see that I have pending today or that needs to be completed? Which groups does Michael belong in? And, being able to really find out, imagine we have actually partners building on the platform to manage, for example, conferences and events. Tell me which, who has attended the event, and then be able to, let's say, trigger an automatic email flow to be able to connect with them and to thank them for attending. So that's one way to think about the different assets that lie under the platform. One thing that I want you to know, it's not as simple as, again, a cover, because there are multiple components that really facilitate the access and flow of data into Graph. Primarily, we have thousands of REST APIs that gives you real-time access to the data. Secondly, we have what we call Graph connectors. So connectors enable you to bring your own content to enrich existing data sets so that you can even furthermore customize the experience for your users. Last but not least, when it comes to big data analytics, understanding, let's say, an entire organization, we wanted to provide our customers a way to really access the data at scale. So this is what we have in Data Connect that allows you that bulk access. In a nutshell, APIs are the building block of platforms. They feed both the first-party apps built on Microsoft and then the third-party applications as well. And one of the ways to really make sure that the platforms can scale, being a company like Microsoft, we also use internally and build on top of this platform. So if you've ever used office.com and then seen your most recently accessed document, that is built on Graph. There are many more instances where Graph also plays into Microsoft Outlook if you use that for your email. Let me give you a context in terms of magnitude and the opportunity that exists, both to provide rich context for your applications, because if you think of this way, more than 90% of 500 companies today have data sitting on Microsoft Graph. That enables them to really be able to go deep to get the insight, understand what's trending, what meetings times are most effective for the organization, or to also be able to respond to changes, right, in real time. One of the things that we can do through Microsoft Graph, in addition to also productivity, for example, is managing your network. We allow IT administrator to be able to provision users, decommission users, backup and restore files as necessary as well. So the reach is really a high scale volume. We move about 18 trillion resources through Microsoft Graph, whether it be emails, events, users, files that exist in our data sets. So think about it like it's not just about apps and it's not just about code. Many of our partners and ISVs actually build their successful businesses by creating SaaS applications that they can in turn have their own users and customers and generate significant revenue. Just think of the 200 million active users that can be reached through the platform. So it is really a privilege to be working on such a platform. But of course, it comes with learning a lot about what is it like, it's really differentiating between product thinking versus platform thinking as a PM. There are considerations, especially like, in addition to the primary role, every PM is a visionary, you have your technical know-how, and then you have a thoughtful approach to building the products. But one of the main criterias, I know we all a group of, user-centric, user-first PMs, is you actually do have a different set of, I call them stakeholders, because we still have end users of apps on top of the apps that are built on the platform. But you have to manage a lot of internal and external stakeholders. If you remember our productivity cloud suite that had over 30 products, so each of these products is actually owned by a specific product PM. So platforms are built for builders. So the first thing that you do is understanding which of the developers, internally, externally, you're going to serve. What are the partners? What are their needs? What are other product managers that you need to really interact with in order to ensure that your platform is built at scale? Understanding their needs and also being able to prioritize is key. Which features do you put first in the platform versus last? So everybody is invited at the table, almost everybody, when you're building a platform. Another key learning that we had is on balancing long-term versus short-term wins, right? So as a PM who worked on e-commerce before, it's really easy. You turn on something and you see if the money came in. If it's a cart abandonment, were we able to recapture or bring back the users in, or did we lose them? But when it comes to actually building a platform, you have to think through what is our long term. You won't have a lot of the whoa, we've shipped this, we've shipped that, we've experimented, we got some quick feedback loop and we turned it around. A thriving ecosystem also, in addition to the platform, does not occur overnight. Even when you have the platform, you start attracting third-party developers and partners, it takes time to get to, if you remember earlier, the place where Apple got to when it was in competition with BlackBerry, right? So one of the key things though for product platform PMs is to have a cohesive vision for all the product and services that your platform will be able to support, and balancing them to be able to say, hey, what is my multi-year roadmap looks like, securing the resources, and then starting to successfully manage the platform and delivering those components. And it's really also key to be strong partners with your engineering team. The third learning that we've had is that platform comes with many layers of complexity. One thing that I'm just gonna ask, anybody knows what the orange thing is? Oh my gosh. I didn't know growing up that even such a thing existed, okay? So here's the thing. Just like Lego sets, platforms come with more than just the bricks, right? They just come more than the pieces. You have the building blocks, you have the tooling, you have the infrastructure that really makes it easy for developer to get started and scale on your platform. The orange thing, for those who might not know it, actually is when you have too many little pieces of Legos and you want to remove them, it is really hard. As a kid, I used my teeth, I used my short nails that I didn't have, but it didn't really quite work. That's not what we want on Graph for our developers. We don't want them to be using their nails and their teeth. That's why in addition to our APIs and our gateway infrastructure, we provide a graph toolkit that allows you to easily drag and drop literally components into your applications, promoting reuse and best practices. We have a set of SDKs, documentation, code samples. I mean, those are all core to the success of the platform. An API does not stand alone, or a group of APIs does not stand alone. Internally, you have another layer of complexity, because we talked about managing stakeholders, but just imagine managing dependencies, right? Because you need to really have a long-term cross-product vision that not only define what you're going to build, but captures and delivers value over time. What is more fun than actually needing to also simplify it for your customers? Completely abstract those complexities so it literally looks like the masterpiece you see here, the Colosseum. That's what platform looks like on the outside, but they come with many layers of complexities on the inside. The fourth point, before we get to our last one, is juggling priorities and constant tug of war. I mean, it's almost like, which master are you going to serve today? And also, what are you going to say no to? I almost feel like a platform PM needs to have no as the first word and then say, oh, I take that back. After consideration, this is what's possible, because there is so much at stake, so much to choose from, that sometimes you have to ruthlessly prioritize, and then being able to negotiate with your partners and your stakeholders in terms of why things need to be delayed, or pushed back, or prioritized a certain way. My favorite, though, I saved it for last, is number 5. The multiplier effect is magical. The most gratifying learning and experience that I've had as a platform PM over time is that a platform gives your ideas and products and solutions wings as you see partners and developers surprise you with their versions. They surprise you beyond what you could have even imagined alone. The multiplier effect is purely magical. That moment when you see somebody else building a ship and a house and a building, and it all cohesively just fits perfectly. So that's it. It's always like, Magic Land. I think Disneyland is already open. Yes, it is great. It is magical. I want to stay there. But one of the things I definitely want to bring, to you and share as well, is this lot of gotchas that you also need to have in the back of your mind along the way as you build a platform. You can't do it without this, because often, based on the priorities and so much to do, that you can forget these. I put them as questions just so that you can keep reflecting on them. It's like, what is your long-term strategy for the platform? Is the platform architected for future growth, right? When you get the first 500,000 apps, the next million apps, is your platform going to scale for that? What are the revenue opportunities and business model for the platform? It's not just, bricks and Legos, right? At the end, it looks like a masterpiece that people are willing to participate and play in, because also business model attracts more third-party customers. Because for developers who want to be able to make a living or generate revenue through your platform, there has to be some incentives and some opportunities for them. How do you secure buy-in for platform strategy with internal stakeholders? If you remember our productivity cloud, many of our products existed before we even had, Microsoft Graph 5 years ago. So it is constant battle of trying to explain the platform long-term vision over hey, we've been used to just ship our products and we have the features, and you can go click on the button in Outlook and share, an email, or be in this presentation and click next. It's really visible and tangible, but you need to continually secure that long-term buy-in strategy with your internal stakeholders. How do you measure success for the platform? That's another thing that is a little trickier, right? Because it's not going to be magically. Sometimes it just takes time for some of your features and value to be realized on the platform by the third-party applications. How would you measure the success in the meantime? So even defining the metrics on which to measure the platform over time are different than when you do have for product, like just looking at monthly active users, an example of what we're familiar in the product sense. You wouldn't be able to necessarily measure that immediately. And then as you reach scale, right, your infrastructure, your error rate, things that shows the resiliency of your platform become also very, very critical. Since fast loop experimentation is harder with platforms, you have to get very creative as a product manager on how do you get customer feedback sooner, because also ship it and forget it, and build it, they will come, as we've all heard. It is not necessarily a way to invest in a platform that will be able to show value both for the business as well as for your users. So keep an open mind. These are just a few that we've encountered and we think about as a graph team, but keep that in mind as you're building the next platform. So bringing it all together, I think I found this picture and I thought it kind of bringing it all well, right? today, the digital economy, I was going to say the Bitcoin economy, but we're not there yet. It's still a digital economy. It brings along a lot of participants, from developers to customers to end users, that are going to use your platform. But you also have the supply side, like I said, the many stakeholders that you need in order to produce on one side and to consume on the other side, brings together that vibrant opportunity for these apps that are going to be built reusing these APIs to no idea what just happened. But we will pick up from there. Maybe we should have used Teams. That's a good joke. Can everybody still hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, so I think this is where we left, right?
Yes.
Okay, no, so I was just saying that, as we bring it all together, I hope that you have really seen and heard that the benefits that building a platform can bring by far helps you, flourish as a platform owner, as a company. And I have, a hunch, if I ask you again this question, what would you pick? A platform, building a platform, or building a product? And there's no right or wrong answer, because in certain cases, standalone products still make sense as well. But
So
for
you can do both. Why do you have to choose?
exactly, I will do both, but the platform all the way with products built on top of them. And that said, here is a recap. So the takeaways are, as you build a platform, just keep in mind that you have different stakeholders, and sometimes they're not even stakeholders you're thinking about today, but having a long-term roadmap helps you think about them. Also, being able to balance the short-term versus the long-term needs are critical. The layers of complexity, like peeling the onion. Just think of the Colosseum. Anytime you think about, a platform, it does have multiple intricacies and comes with different things. And as a product, a platform PM, another thing is juggling the priorities. You have to ruthlessly prioritize. Say no more often than you do say yes, because you will have less resources and need to be more focused in order to really deliver a platform that scales. But the multiplier effect is the magic that happens. So I do hope that, we all get the experience to partake and enjoy that. For data platforms, so I didn't go into data as much, but when you think of data platforms similar to Microsoft Graph, it's also critical to think about security and compliance implications that are around managing data. So that said, I would love to take some questions from the audience and really have a lively discussion. In the meantime, thank you for being you, and thank you for being here. I will turn it back to you now, Lena.
We've got some questions coming in. Thank you, Gladys, for that awesome presentation.
Thank you, Gladys. Yeah.
My pleasure.
Okay. Would you like me to just go through these questions, Gladys, or do you have?
I can. Yeah, go ahead. I was going to try to get the. Maybe if I stop sharing, like I said, this is my first time sharing on Zoom. I can read the questions as well. Yes, go ahead.
Sure. The first one I see is, how do you go about building a platform roadmap?
That is a very great question, right? So I always say, as product people, we are problem solvers, right? What problem do we solve? And I often say, if you look at the trend and the shift today, there's already so many different platforms serving specific needs. How you go about building a roadmap is always starting from, what problem do I want to solve? But you often platforms solve really complex problems. Then you break it down to, what are the immediate needs that this platform needs to solve? And then you layer it on top of it. And I always say, you have to find ways. You remember when I say one of the gotchas is the creative ways to get feedback loop from developers, from your third-party partners, because without and the long-term roadmap will also evolve based on their needs, based on their requirements that you will be able to prioritize. But I will say start small and then iterate and then decide which components need to come on as they deliver incremental value, solving the problems that you had in mind.
Okay, and that question was from Aisha, so thank you.
Thanks, Aisha.
Marina asks, how do you validate your platform use cases?
That is such a great idea. I mean, I can talk to the case of Graph, right? I mentioned to you that we have a productivity platform where we have over 25 products. So we could also already know the first problem we wanted to solve was how do we make it easy for any third-party developers to not have to search for 30 different solutions and 30 different endpoints on Microsoft. So we started with solving with one unified API endpoint that allowed you to be able to access the data. We do have what we call a TAP program. It's a technology adoption program with partners that we bring them early on, even before we release these features. So we get feedback from them in terms of, hey, here's the platform. We've given you a single unified endpoint to access the data. And they then provide us with requirement in terms of, here is the data set that I'm looking for. This is what Graph has today, and this is what's missing. And the most important part of it is because the platforms allow them to build their businesses, it's also easy to look at the metrics. You know, what's the usage today, what kind of scenarios are being built on the platform, as a way to really identify coming up with new features that you can then test, in that case with our TAP technology adoption program, which we do run. I mean, like, we have like a monthly call with them. We do have conferences where we invite them and be able to just give them access to early preview features so that we can get the feedback and iterate as we go along.
Okay, thank you, Marina. Alec asks, how do you find platform market fit?
That is that is a challenge. That is a tricky one. If you remember, as part of one of the gotchas, I said, really think critically about the business model that you have, because that's part of what product market fit is. It's easy. I actually almost brought like a bag of Legos to my desk, but I left them downstairs. It's so easy to just say we're going to build more APIs and more APIs and more APIs. I'll give you the case of Microsoft Graph, actually. So we originally built it with the intention that people were going to build custom applications to interact, let's say, with Teams for your meetings, and with PowerPoint and with Excel. But we actually realized that a lot of the use cases were for IT administrators, because it's easy for them to provision and decommission users at scale. Imagine an organization with 10,000 users, and you need to ensure that they have the right permissions set in their OneDrive, and they have access to the right folders and the right messages. It is almost impossible to do it not impossible, but you will need a lot of hand-holding and a lot of resources to do it manually. So how you achieve product market fit, you have to constantly be looking for the patterns of usage. So we have a data science team in the case of Graph that actually helps us keep track of the trends and how product usage is really happening, because that's real true product market fit over the scenarios of like, hey, maybe people are just going to customize the way the picture look in a meeting. So you just have to be listening to your customers, not just listening to what they have to say. I mentioned we do the TAP technology adoption program. We have other developer facing programs and conferences and blogs and newsletters that we get a pulse from them. We do run surveys frequently, but the real product market fit is actually found when you see the successful businesses built on the platform and what type of use cases they're actually enabling. Thanks for that great question.
Yeah, thank you. Okay, Gladys Chander says, thank you, Gladys. I'm curious how you plan for the long term and or unknown stakeholders. We don't know what we don't know.
That is great. We don't know what we don't know, but PMs, we are all visionaries, right? I think we always have to aim high, really, set ourselves to be like, hey, we want to be the ubiquitous data platform that allows you to build any applications on the Microsoft, productivity cloud suite. Yes, you will not know all your stakeholders. I just gave you the example of like IT admin became one of the key stakeholders in the graph experiences when we originally thought we're building it for third-party developers and, software vendors that just wanted to customize, email flows or business applications, with a suite of products. So how you plan for the unknown is you do have a plan to build a scalable platform. And like I said, if you start with each of the use cases, how do you eat an elephant? My favorite is one bite at a time. When you prioritize your MVP, your V1, your V2, your in the next version, and you also have feedback that you receive from customers, it is actually easy to be able to identify, in this case, here are the other different stakeholders. I will give you another one. I mean, a very close partner to the productivity side of the house is our identity side of the house. So single sign-on, because it's very important for all of these applications, right? So over time, we identify both internally and externally, which are the key participants that actually needs to help the platform evolve. And I will use the platform like the word evolve. Literally, evolution is key. I always says if you don't evolve, you'll be like the dinosaurs and you will just disappear. You eventually learn, listen, and then also update your stakeholder maps as you learn more.
Okay. Thank you. I'm going to jump down to this one because I like it. John asks, Gladys, could you talk more about your personal journey to becoming a PM? I'm coming from a non-conventional background in running political campaigns, lots of data analysis, marketing, and voter conversations, and I'm interested in how you made your path.
Hey, John, I can put you on speed dial. I can give you a call, but no kidding. I am the most unconventional PM you will ever meet. In high school, I wanted to be a singer. In college, I changed my major 7 times. Eventually, I had to graduate. I don't know, accidentally, I graduated in computer science. I wrote software literally. Actually, I worked with Michael, who was on the call, Michael Lee here. We were writing security related software. And then I just realized this is not for me. I love talking to people. I love solving problems, but I love people more than I love code. So I decided to go back to business school. In business school, I thought I really wanted to be a marketer. But one thing that I realized was once you're an engineer, your brain, the way you solve problems is also a little different than just marketing and telling people about other products that have been built. So there is no such thing as an unconventional background. Number one, John, I changed my major 7 times. I still turned out okay. And then you can just, I always says, go with curiosity and intent, and you can do anything you want to be. I never peg-hole people into roles. If you go back, and I can, share PDF of the slide, but if you look at my career journey, I actually don't associate roles with what I usually say. I say I was in engineering, I was in marketing, I was in product, and I was in something, because roles, even product manager, we can peg hole people, but if you have the curiosity and you want to learn and be able to solve some of the world's problems, you are a product manager. It doesn't matter your background. I was also a psychology major, so it really makes me like the crazy odd one, but I made it through. And we welcome people with diverse background, because your stakeholders, your users usually come from anywhere else. Now, actually, one point that I will say about ecosystems, the reason we usually have a big and vibrant ecosystem is because other people, let's say lawyers, are going to use it to customize it for their needs, right? Other industries that bring their own knowledge can extend the life of your product beyond. I'm not a legal expert, so I wouldn't know how to run a political campaign, but you actually be surprised that somebody from a non-PM background could come up with, a very thorough way to be able to solve those.
Yeah, definitely agree with that. So since we have less than 10 minutes left, I wanted to save some time for just networking, some casual Q&A, or just speak up and talk amongst yourselves. We don't all have to be on mute. Yeah, it may not be the same in a virtual setting, right? As we usually do in person, but Feel free to maybe ask your own questions. Yeah,
Thanks a lot, Gladys. This is Madan from India. I'm a bit late right now, but I really wanted to attend this session. Thank you for this. It is just an observation. Statistically, I think one of the jobs that has actually increased in demand by leaps and bounds is the PM. And there are probably a lot of more reasons, but being able to wear multiple hats, and being able to almost quote unquote predict the future, I think has been one of the reasons for that job bump up in this pandemic situation. What would you think? Did I say something wrong? I think we lost Gladys. Oh, there she is.
no, not at all. I think the connection got lost. You there, Gladys?
Hi, Madan. Sorry about that. I have no idea what's going on. Like today of all days. Can you repeat the question for me, please?
No, I said basically, in this pandemic situation, probably the reason for the bump up of the PM position almost is because of the ability to wear multiple hats and quote unquote predict the future, long-term future. So, I mean, do you have any opinion on that part, especially with the current pandemic situation?
Actually, that's a very great question. Thank you so much for asking. I mean, if you could see my settings here, I have a lot of books. I will tell you, and like you said, the pandemic threw a curveball even to product managers. We usually have a way to think about things, but we almost all had to reset. We almost had to evolve how we even approach building things, right? Like think of the number of times that Zoom crashed or Teams crashed during this pandemic and allowing people to work effectively. So as part of that, like I read a lot more now that I read before in terms of what's going on in the big data space. You just have to keep up with what's going on in the industry, how are the new better ways to do things. And sometimes as a platform PM, you just also have to decide, what do you reuse, what do you buy versus, and again, like I said, you have to just learn to say no and really focus on what is the critical thing at the moment during like a pandemic time that a product manager needs to know or have the skill set to do. And luckily things like AI are also coming to our rescue to help, streamline some of these things. So just be curious and keep learning. That's my way of, trying to keep up with the field.
Great, thank you.
Yeah. Do you have any questions for us, Gladys?
No, I'm so delighted that everyone is here, and I'm just curious, anybody else also had like a very unconventional path they're willing to share with us?
Hi, yeah, I started in strategy, worked into business development, and then accidentally, like many product people, became a product manager on a job where I was supposed to be the project manager. So yeah, that's my journey. I love that you started with aspirations to be a singer though, and then went to comp sci, and then ended up in product after flirting with marketing. So I think that's more diverse. But yeah, I think like it's really exciting to have you here and meet all these great people. And thank you so much for the presentation.
My pleasure, thank you. And I'd love to also hear if somebody is building a platform, what are some of the learnings and considerations that they have to, encounter that they're willing to share with the group as well.
Is anybody here building any platforms? Might be a rare ask, I don't know. John Char is typing that he recently moved into a platform role.
Yeah, I do want to say that I am at a company where we are building a platform, but I have this challenge because to grow to a $1 billion company from a $380 million company requires big pockets from big customers. So we're kind of in this spot where we're torn to chase after these customers with really customized needs versus building a capability that's more of one size fits all. I'm wondering, like, do you think the solution is just building ultra flexibility in your own platform and having your clients maybe meet you midway, and like maybe it's sometimes some things have to be customized and not everything is going to be in a platform to make that $1 billion revenue goal?
Yeah, that is a tough one. That is a great question, Catherine. And I will tell you, I've been in those shoes before. The challenge is, especially as you start up, right, you don't have the cash flow. So it's hard to tell you, oh no, build the one size fit all. But if your main customers today, and especially when you're cash strapped, you kind of almost, remember the tug of war slide in terms of the stakeholders? You literally have to really be able to say, okay, what do I give up in terms of the generic capabilities while giving a little more customization to my top paying customers, because you need the cash, right? If money was not an issue, I would say, well, maybe you could take other parameters into account. But it's hard to say do X or do Y, because it is a real tug of war in that case, that you just gotta make the trade-offs and take some risk and just be like, okay, we understand the risk and here's how we're going to mitigate them when they happen. But the last risk you want to take is to lose your main paying customer when your goal is to make money, right? And it is the same that says it's better to have one bird than in your hands than two in the nest
Right.
in the early stages.
I hear you.
All right, I guess I'm going to wrap us up. So thank you everybody for attending today. Thank you. Big thanks to Gladys for speaking. If anybody here would like to volunteer to speak, we try to hold one of these once a month or so. Or if anybody knows anybody they'd like to nominate, we definitely depend on the community and your contributions by speaking and just sharing your knowledge. So it's open to anybody you might know. Please feel free to reach out to myself or Glenn or any of the hosts you see on the meetup page. Once again, thanks so much, Gladys. Hope everybody enjoys the rest of their day.
Thank you, everyone. Have a great rest of the day, a great weekend, and great evening. And thank you so much for those who joined from India so late in the night.
Yeah, for sure. All righty.
Bye-bye.
Everyone, bye.